Hey guys, so we're going to go ahead and do the Battle of Grendel today. So if you could follow along in your transcript. And off the moors, down through the mist bands, God-cursed Grendel came greedily loping. The bane of the race of men roamed forth, hunting for a prey in the high hall. Under the cloud murk he moved towards it until it shone above him, a sheer keep of fortified gold. Nor was the first time he had scouted the grounds of Hrothgar's dwelling, although never in his life before or since did he find harder fortune or hall defenders. Spurned and joyless, he journeyed on ahead and arrived at the bawn. The iron-braced door turned on its hinge when his hands touched it. Then his rage boiled over. He ripped open the mouth of the building, maddening for blood, pacing the length of the patterned floor with his loathsome tread, while a baleful light, flame more than light, flared from his eyes. He saw many men in the mansion sleeping, a ringed company of kinsmen and warriors quartered together, and its glee was demonic. Picturing the mayhem before morning, he would rip life from limb and devour them, feed on their flesh. But his fate that night was due to change. His days of ravening had come to an end. So Grendel is back. He's running through the land. He arrives at Heorot. There's an iron door. He rips the iron door open and bursts inside, and he sees all of these men sleeping, and his eyes take on the color of fire. He is so excited. He knows he's about to have a great meal. He's going to eat everyone there. There's going to be blood and mayhem and chaos. But this is the first time he's ever going to meet Beowulf, and his fate may very well change. Mighty and canny, Helioc's kinsman was keenly watching for the first move the monster would make. Nor did the creature keep him waiting, but struck suddenly and started in. He grabbed and mauled a man on his bench, bit into the bone lappings, bolted down his blood, and gorged on him in lumps, leaving the body utterly lifeless, eaten up hand and foot. Venturing closer, his talon was raised to attack Beowulf where he lay on the bed. He was bearing with an open claw when the alert hero's comeback and arm lock forestalled him utterly. The captain of evil discovered himself in a hand grip harder than anything he had ever encountered in any man on the face of the earth. Every bone in his body quailed and recoiled, but he could not escape. He was desperate to flee to his den and hide with the devil's litter, for in all his days he had never been clamped or cornered like this. Then Helioc's trusty retainer recalled his bedtime speech, sprang to his feet, and got a firm hold. Fingers were bursting, the monster backtracking, the man overpowering. The dread of the land was desperate to escape, to take a roundabout road and flee to his lair in the fens. The latching power in his fingers weakened. It was the worst trip the terrormonger had ever taken to Heorot. So after Grendel comes into the room, he sees a sleeping man, and he's just picks him up, rips him in half, and eats him like a breakfast burrito. And then he throws down the bloody lumps, and he goes over and sees Beowulf. And he's like, oh, yum, he's going to eat another one. And he reaches down, and he's about to grab Beowulf, and Beowulf all of a sudden grabs his arm. And that is when the tide changes. For the first time in 12 years, Grendel cannot break free. He has found someone strong enough to actually hold him in place. And for the first time, Grendel actually gets really scared because he's finally met his match. And he starts wailing. He starts screaming just to escape, but he can't escape. And Beowulf is holding on and on and on. And he is just trying so hard to get out of there. And now the timbers trembled and sang, a hall session that harrowed every Dane inside the stockade. Stumbling in fury, the two contenders crashed through the building. The hall clattered and hammered, but somehow survived the onslaught and kept standing. It was handsomely structured, a steady frame, braced with the best of the blacksmith's work inside and out. And the story goes that as the pair struggled, mead benches were smashed and sprung off the floor, gold fittings and all. Before then, no shielding elder would believe there was any power or person upon earth capable of wrecking their horn-rigged hall, unless the burning embrace of a fire engulf it in flame. Then an extraordinary wail arose, and bewildering fear came over the Danes. Everyone felt it who heard that cry as it echoed off the wall, a God-cursed scream and strain of catastrophe, the howl of the loser, the lament of the hell-serf keening his wound. He was overwhelmed, manacled tight by the man who of all men was foremost and strongest in the days of his life. So Beowulf is holding on to Grendel, and Grendel is fighting and screaming and cannot break free, and he's throwing the benches, and he's ripping apart hayrods and just doing desperate fighting to try and get away. But Beowulf just keeps holding on. But the Earl troop's leader was not inclined to allow his caller to depart alive. He did not consider that life of much account to anyone anywhere. Time and again, Beowulf's warriors worked to defend their lord's life, laying about them as best they could with their ancestral blades. Stalwart in action, they kept striking out on every side, seeking to cut straight to the soul. When they joined the struggle, there was something they could not have known at the time, that no blade on earth, no blacksmith's art could ever damage their demon opponent. He had conjured the harm from the cutting edge of every weapon, but his going away out of the world and the days of his life would be agony to him, and his alien spirit would travel far into fiends' keeping. Have you ever wondered in 12 years why Hrothgar's men were never able to kill Grendel? It's because his skin is magical, and no weapon can penetrate it. Okay, every time a sword tries, the sword would just break. Okay, and so no matter how hard they tried to fight Grendel, it just simply was not going to happen. Then he who had harrowed the hearts of men with pain and affliction in former times, and had given offense also to God, found that his bodily powers failed him. Heliac's kinsman kept him helplessly locked in a hand grip. As long as either lived, he was hateful to the other. The monster's whole body was in pain. A tremendous wound appeared on his shoulder. Sinew split and the bone lappings burst, and Beowulf was granted the glory of winning. Grendel was driven under the fen banks, fatally hurt to his desolate lair. His days were numbered, and the end of his life was coming over him. He knew it for certain, and one bloody clash, hell had fulfilled the dearest wishes of the Danes. Okay, so Beowulf is holding Grendel. Grendel is trying desperately to get away. Beowulf's men are coming with swords trying to stab him, but nothing is working. And all of a sudden, Beowulf grabs his arm so tight, the shoulder begins to separate, and Beowulf rips his arm clean off and just holds it. And Grendel, bleeding and bleeding, runs back to his lair. He's gonna bleed out and die. Okay, he's going to lose way too much blood. The man who had lately landed among them, proud and sure, had purged the hall, kept it from harm. He was happy with his night work and the courage he had shown. The Geat captain had boldly fulfilled his boast to the Danes. He had healed and relieved a huge distress, unremitting humiliations, the hard fate they had been forced to undergo, no small affliction. Clear proof of this could be seen in the hand the hero displayed high up near the roof, the whole of Grendel's shoulder and arm, his awesome grasp. Then morning came, and many a warrior gathered, as I've heard, around the gift hall, clan chiefs flocking near and far down wide-ranging roads, wondering greatly at the monster's footprints. His fatal departure was regretted by no one who witnessed his trail. The ignominious marks of his flight, where he skulked away, exhausted in spirit and beaten in battle, blooding the path, hauling his doom to the demon's mare. The bloodshot water wallowed and surged. There were loathsome upthrows and overturnings of waves and gore and wound slurry. With his death upon him, he had dived deep in the marsh den, downed on his life and his heathen soul. Hell claimed him there. So the next morning, all of the Danish warriors, they rode into the marsh to look for his lair, And while they were there, the water was all red from his blood. So they knew that Grendel had died. He had bled out to death. Then away they rode, the old retainers with many a young men following after, a troop on horseback and high spirits on their bay deeds. Beowulf's doings were praised over and over again. Nowhere, they said, north or south, between the two seas or under the tall sky on the broad earth, was there anyone better to raise a shield or to rule a kingdom. And yet there was no laying blame on their lord, the noble Hrothgar. He was a good king. So it's important to note that the Danish people did not resent Hrothgar, okay? They knew he tried his best, okay? So they didn't hate him. At times, the war band broke into a gallop, letting their chestnut horses race wherever they found the going good on those well-known tracks. Meanwhile, a thane of the king's household, a carrier of tales, a traditional singer deeply schooled in the lore of the past, linked a new theme to a strict meter. The man started to recite with skill, rehearsing Beowulf's triumphs and feats and well-fashioned lines, entwining his words. So the Battle of Grendel ends with all of the singers in the house in Heorot gathering together and writing a song that would later be sung in the mead hall. Okay, and that was again how Beowulf's story was circulated. Okay, so the next two parts are going to be, we're going to learn about Grendel's mother and how she tries to avenge her son. And then we are going to read about the dragon. All right, go ahead and answer your questions on your sheet.